I used to do lots of things.
I used to do things and I'd say things and Jesus I was evil. Take things and break things and Jesus I was evil. I never shook, baby.
Yeah. So Seinfeld, huh?
Yeah, so we were in the middle of a Seinfeld conversation. What else is new? And where I'm like, we should probably just start recording. And that's what we're doing.
Well, what I was going to bring real quick though is that it's interesting seeing how the characters change over the series. So like Susan's parents,
Susan's
their
parents. Oh, yes,
George's fiance, yeah.
Yeah, how did they change?
They started off because I mean, like later on, they're established as being very wealthy. But earlier on, like in their first appearance, I think it seems like they're kind of wealthy, but they're also kind of like they're just much more dysfunctional, and they seem a little bit more kind of blue, like a little trashier, a little more blue collar.
Yeah, I always think of them as like blue blood, old money.
Well, I don't know if you're at the point where the first time he's dating Susan, because then he turns her lesbian, they break up, and then she comes back a few seasons later.
Yeah.
But the first time they're dating, when you see her parents, they're not quite as upper crust as they are.
Interesting. I'll look for that this time. Yeah, like I was saying before we started recording, I've obviously seen Seinfeld many times, even start to finish on streaming, but just like throughout my life watching it, cumulatively. But I started it. My wife had actually never seen it. She loves New York. She loves that sense of humor, but she actually never had seen Seinfeld start to finish. I don't know. So we started together, and then I'm noticing things like paying attention to like when certain characters are being introduced. Like I was telling Joe, it's crazy to me that we're at the beginning of season 4, like episode 4 or 5, and George's parents aren't even in it yet. Like Jerry Stiller's not in it. Estelle isn't in it. Newman is just introduced at the beginning of season 4, and he was referenced in earlier seasons, but he never spoke or you never saw him. You just kind of knew him as a guy in the building. So it's just those sorts of things. Like Putty, of course, isn't in it yet, and Putty's one of my favorites. In fact, my fraternity in college, one year we all went as Seinfeld characters, and I was Putty. Which was very fun. And I don't know if I've said this on the pod before, but like some of my fraternity brothers, like one guy, he committed so hard to George that he shaved his head at the top of it, so it's just the hair around it. I don't know if it would be okay. We did have our one Egyptian brother go as Jackie, because we didn't have any black guys.
Close enough.
I don't know if that's okay. He was cool with it. He volunteered it. Yeah, but it was very funny. We had one guy who was like perfect for Kramer. So that's nice. And Seinfeld holds a very special place in my heart.
So how was your Christmas? This is our first episode after Christmas.
This was good. We hosted Christmas Day, which was nice. It was cold, I think. It was like very cold that part of the week. But yeah, everything was good, uneventful, nice. What about you?
Yeah, it was good. I went to the Bay Area. I was staying at my parents' place for a week.
That's unfortunate, but
yeah, well, it's actually they live in a decent part.
Not joking. That's good. You could have said anywhere in California. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it was a lot of activities. The first night I was there, we did Top Golf. You know what that is?
Like driving. Was that the one that's virtual, or is that just like driving range?
It's like a driving range meets Dave and Buster's. So it's
really? Okay.
So everyone's, you book a spot, and it's on the side of a building, so you can hit golf balls like off the 3rd floor,
right?
And like onto the range, but like it's set up like like a lounge or a bar, so it's like
bowling alleys. Like someone's driving and they bring you food and you drink, and
it's pretty cool. But also there's a bowling element where they have like because they track where your ball goes, so they're like the crazy animations every time.
Really? So it really is like bowling.
Yeah, it is.
I've obviously been to driving ranges, and I've been to something in New York that is like that. It's pretty cool because you can hit it. You're high up, and but I don't think it was Top Golf.
Yeah, but it's cool. It's fun.
Golf?
No, I Top Golf.
Top Golf, yeah.
But it's cool. You get like beer, nachos, and shoot balls. So we did that. We did go-kart racing. We did a Christmas in the park. So in downtown San Jose, it's been around for decades, but it's like they have like these really like cheesy robot like elves and stuff, like all these like, little set of, like it was cool when you're like 6 years old, but they've never updated anything. So, but
there's that, right?
There's a cheesy charm to it. Like, at the very least, it's nostalgic. Right. So we did that on Christmas, and then anyway, downtown San Jose is pretty cool. It's very cosmopolitan. So just seeing all the buildings, just all decorated and everything. So we got a nice dinner, and then saw family. Oh, and then the last night I was there, my mom's cousin, it was his birthday, and he plays guitar. He's just as a hobby, but he's got a son who plays guitar, and then some grandkids who play who are musicians. So we just had this big kind of drunken jam sesh. So that was cool. That's fun.
Shredded some gnar.
Yeah. So yeah, that was.
How big? I'm surprised I haven't asked you this. If I have, forgive me. How big are the San Jose Sharks in San Jose? Because they're the only professional team you guys have.
Yeah.
And that's someone who also comes from a market that, yes, like New Jersey technically has a lot of teams if you count metro areas, but if you're saying like just with the title of New Jersey, we also only have one team, and it is also a hockey team. Yeah, and I lean into that much harder because of that. It's like we're in this little island on battling two fronts of New York and Philly.
Right.
So San Jose, are the Sharks big or no? Because I always kind of had a soft spot for them.
Yeah, the Sharks are pretty big in San Jose. So they're not big really anywhere else outside of the Bay Area at all.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Or even San Jose, really. Because if you go just going up to San Francisco, which is only an hour away, I don't really see much of any like Sharks stuff. Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty big in San Jose. And it's funny, I actually just found out within the last couple of years, there's we have a Little Italy in downtown San Jose. Yeah, I just found this out because I guess it's very small. It's just one street, and it has like 3 Italian restaurants.
Now. Yeah,
it's just 3 Italian restaurants and like a little museum of like, I don't know, I guess the Bay Area's history with Italians or something.
Interesting.
But it's funny
we are everywhere.
I know. Well, yeah. You guys take it over. But it's funny because so we had this really cool restaurant that was like a New Orleans style restaurant, and it's right by the Sharks. We call it the Shark Tank because it was always changing names.
Cool.
So we call it, and so there was this really cool, and it's a cool sports bar type place, but they also have a lot of blues bands, and it was like the only like sort of semi legit, New Orleans style restaurant. You get po' boys and stuff like that.
Cool.
and then they moved. They shut down, and then they moved to Little Italy. But then they still called the Poorhouse Bistro, and they still have a lot of New Orleans style food. But because it's in Little Italy, they had to they still have the same logo, but now it's red, white, and green. They kind of forced this Italian theme, but still kind of Louisiana. And so it's like this is the only way we stay in business. So it's like,
fair enough. I mean, it's better than like an empty lot or whatever.
And so I'm glad it's still there, and it's and they're also they have a lot of live music they're playing almost every night.
They should get. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's funny, this weird clash of Southern New Orleans style and Italian. Like we had to put a few spaghetti dishes on the menu. Sorry.
Well, they should lean into it. They should lean into being like New Orleans actually has a very large Italian population, and now it's a lot of like most populations, they move out to the suburbs and just kind of intermingle. But parts of the French Quarter actually used to be called Little Palermo, and they were not just Italians; they were specifically Sicilians.
Yeah,
I know. Don't get them started, but there was a point for like maybe 10, 20 years when New Orleans actually had the largest Italian population in America. And then that became surpassed. There was like an early wave. Like a lot of people think of the wave that came to like New York, New Jersey, Philly, Boston. Like those were actually later. And that was more Southern Italy. Those were like my people. New Orleans was specifically Sicilians. They could. And there are like Louisiana. So what I bring this up to say, like there are Louisiana Italian specific dishes they should lean into and be like really niche. Like not only are we like a Little Italy in San Jose, California, but we're a Little Italy in like we're a taste of New Orleans, Little Italy in San Jose, California.
Yeah. I'm sure with the 5-minute Google search, they probably could have come up with a theme that brought those two cultures together. But I think this is just sort of like this is the only way we could stay in business.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's still a cool restaurant. They have a cool outdoor patio and stuff, and right next to it is a very Godfather inspired speakeasy. So you have to like go underground, and then they have a lot.
What am I wearing? Oh, Goodfellas. But I'm wearing
hey, cool,
stereotypical Italian shirt.
Yeah,
movie shirt.
But that's
enough cool. Italian talk.
Yeah, the Italians, always the Italians.
I knew San Diego had a Little Italy. I did not know San Jose had one.
Yeah, well, apparently they only like made it official in 2015. So that's why I'm like,
finally getting the recognition we deserve.
Oh man, but yeah, enough Christmas talk.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into. Want to do the Adam McKay thing first?
Yeah. So this is interesting. So I wrote an article about this on Medium a few days ago. So Adam McKay, who is a very big director, and he's worked on he's mostly known for comedy. So he was a writer on SNL for 6 years. He did a lot of stuff with a lot of classic films with Will Ferrell, like Anchorman, Talladega Nights, Step Brothers, the other guys, and Anchorman 2. And he's worked on some other like more sort of like like Oscar nominated, but still some satirical films like The Big Short, Vice, and Don't Look Up. He's also one of the co-founders of Funny or Die. He's produced a lot of big shows and movies. So he's he's a huge fucking director, and I think he's even been nominated for. I know he's been nominated for a few. I think he's even won an Oscar for something. Probably for the Big Short, I'm thinking. But anyway, so he's a huge director. But because of how big he is, he also thinks that he's kind of like this political prophet. So he tweeted some stupid shit last week. So he's talking about the film Wicked, which is based on the musical, which is based on the novel, which is inspired by The Wizard of Oz. So he tweeted out, on a pure storytelling level, Wicked Part 1 is right up there as one of the most radical big studio Hollywood movies ever made. I know Part 2 swings back to the theater a bit, but Part 1 is nakedly about radicalization in the face of careerism, fascism, propaganda. I know almost nothing about Wicked. Have you seen the musical or the movie?
I have seen it. It's like my wife's favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
And the movie was really good, like excellent.
Yeah.
Highly recommend seeing it. I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah.
Like I don't know where you're getting any. I feel like now, like Hollywood liberals, they see like a soldier in a uniform, some sort of here's like flying monkeys, of course.
Yeah.
And they think, oh, that's fascism. Like there are like communists or any group didn't have like soldiers in uniform.
Yeah.
I have no idea what he's talking about at all. Like you could, and he even does say in here, or the Hollywood Report, I guess not him, but the Hollywood Reporter, right? That's what this is in. Says that it's, I kind of lost my train of thought. I forgot what I was gonna say. Give me a sec.
Okay.
Oh yeah, says that there's like you said, this was a book in 1995, I think it was, and then it became a show in 2004, and so it's been around for a while. But of course, people like to always just kind of superimpose whatever the current thing is on the current climate to say like, oh, this is really what's saying. It's like, I mean, I actually haven't seen the musical, and I haven't read the book. I actually heard the book's not very good, but I can't imagine the story changed all that much. I did ask my wife, who is has obviously seen the musical many times, and she's like, they didn't change anything, and that was only part 1, as the reporter also says, but they just added like to it, like to beef it up because it was a movie, and but like the story's the same. So I mean, could you have said this in 2004? Could you have said this in 1995? Like I don't know. It seems like, but I think you say in your article, like kind of like liberal hysteria. And I mean, this is the guy who did Don't Look Up. And again, a movie I actually loved. Like I thought Don't Look Up was really good. I thought it was funny. That was interesting. I try and look at movies without the political opinions of the directors and of the actors. I know you could criticize Leo, who you don't like. I know that, for being an environmentalist when he flies a private jet everywhere. Like I get all of that, but I try and look at things isolated as movies, like as much as possible. Any sort of art, I try and do that. So I like Adam McKay. He kind of defined 2000s humor, like 2000s comedies.
Yeah, he's done a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't see how you could be like, how you could have paid attention for the last decade, if not more, and been like, oh yes, the right wingers who are censoring everything.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. I don't, I'm and just to talk about the reception to the film. It's funny because this film was kind of plagued with a lot of crazy culture war controversies. Oh yeah, so the poster for the movie is inspired by the poster for the original musical, but I'm sure you've seen like the poster for the musical where it has like the Wicked Witch of the West, and like the brim of her hat is covering the top part of her face to kind of make it look a little bit more mysterious. But the poster for the movie is very similar, but you see the actress's full face. So somebody went and they digitally touched up the movie poster to make it look a little bit more like the poster for the musical. And then the actress who plays
Cynthia Erivo, Ethelba.
Yeah, she for whatever she was super upset by it, and she accused them of being racist, even though it was just more like, no, we just want to make the movie poster more faithful to the original because it's such an iconic poster.
Yeah.
And she was accusing them of being racist for some stupid fucking reason. And then there's just some other stupid, that Cynthia chick, she's just very out there progressively.
Sure.
And so, but it's so funny though, because like when the movie came out, even a lot of people on the right, or at least people who are not ultra woke, were very, they lauded the film. So the Critical Drinker, who's one of my favorite YouTube channel, movie YouTubes, reviewers, he's been shitting on everything leading up to Wicked, but when he saw the movie, he goes, I gotta admit, it's actually a really good movie. I don't even like musicals that much. And then Ben Shapiro even gave it a positive review. It's like, I hate people involved, but it was a good movie.
Which I think goes to show that like there's no way that this was in your face political. Like obviously you could make the racial comparison of, well, the only green person is a black actress, but there are other black people at this school. They're also terrible to her. Like it's not like they all team up. If anything, the othering in this movie is about animals, and that was kind of weird. I'm like, wait, is this what this is about? It's like in this world, animals and humans coexist as equals. For a little. And the animals, like actually, oh god damn it, Tyrion Lannister.
The little actor, right?
Yes,
Peter Dinklage.
Peter Dinklage. Yes, he voices a goat who's a professor, and then there's this whole kind of, I guess there is a fascist element in terms of like pulling them out, and there's this Stasi type, or this this black coat, brown shirt, I should say, type group who comes in. But okay, fine, like they do just start imprisoning animals. You don't really get it. Again, this was only part one. So maybe that's what he's talking about, which I guess I could see that part, but that's just like not what I just don't get the comparison. Like you just say that about any sort of authoritarian culture, and that's not what's going on here. And if this is supposed to be some sort of allegory, again, this book came out in 1995 to the expected kind of mass deportations with the Trump administration. Like, I'm sorry, they're not deporting professors. Like they're not deported. Like that's just not what's happening. I
don't really care, if Adam McKay is wrong, and maybe he has a point. Maybe he sees something that other people don't, and I like that about art, where it's like audiences can come up with radically different perspectives on what something is. But sure, fine, whatever. But here's the thing. So he doubled down on this for like a full day. And he followed up with it. And he goes, what's really striking about Wicked Part 1 is that it's coming out now when America has never been more right-wing and propagandized. And yes, I know the theatrical production and the book are much older, so part of the timing is a coincidence.
Can I say something? I'm sorry. Can I say something? Not true. Like, America has been like way more right-wing and propagandized than other parts in history. Like, definitely not even close to being true. Not even that true this century. Well, like definitely not. In fact, this is a total realignment, a whole different type of right wing. We were way more right wing and propagandized in like 2003, 2004. Like, and also, you want to talk like, what about the 1950s? What about World War II? What about when we were McCarthyism, when we were putting like just Japanese people in camps, like not even close to being true. And again, not even, and they say, well, it's a different era, but like not even in like modern politics.
Yeah, I know, and again, going back to your earlier point about, how can Adam McKay look at this era and be like, oh yeah, it's the right that's been going around censoring. It's like I've seen far more explicit propaganda coming from left wing, media outlets than from right. And there's a lot of crazy stuff coming out from the right as well. But I mean, the dominant media force is left wing.
The institutions are way more. Yeah, like the dominant institutions, like our universities and our big media conglomerates and Hollywood and Pixar and Disney and all, like way more left-wing propaganda. That not even close, they're not even similar. And that, and also way more censorial. Like now social media, like with Elon's takeover of Twitter, that has changed on Twitter, and it looks like some of the social media companies, whether it's legitimate or not, or genuine or not, like are trying to be more moderate, be more neutral. I think that's because you can't deny Trump not only won in a third election after 8 years of propagandizing that he's basically Hitler, and that he not only won the first time he won with a popular vote, he won with swing, every swing state, he won without I think like the vast majority of counties going more right than in 2020. So it's really like, this is just the way the winds are blowing. But you can't tell me that this is the censorious regime, is the Trump. It's just not even close.
Right. Yeah. But and then he goes on, he doubles down, he triples down. So he followed up with this with another tweet saying, "I think you'll be shocked. If America keeps going on the track it is, I wouldn't be surprised to see the movie banned in 3 to 5 years." A musical about witches being banned in America in 3 to 5 years.
Banned for, like, I don't even know what that means. Banned how? Like, first of all, I'm trying to think here, like, because that obviously is a very incendiary statement, right? People hear like, oh, book banning, book burning, right? This sort of thing. But like, this isn't the 1950s where they could ban like Caligula or whenever that came out. When did that come out? The 70s? Like, where there was still like, you could physically destroy copies of things. You could fine and shut down theaters playing. So you're saying like it's going to get shut down in theater? You think that the US government is going to go around to every theater in America or shut down like YouTube or wherever it's streaming because of what?
And a lot of prominent, like, I mentioned Ben Shapiro. I was like, he's not the only. There are a lot of prominent, conservative voices who are like, "Wick is a pretty good movie. Like all the like dumb controversies around it, it's a pretty good musical movie."
I think people like people. I also think people like Ben Shapiro and people who are overtly, and I mean that as in like their business is being right wing. They like shit that comes out of Hollywood that is just kind of neutral. Like you can't look at I think liberals do this. They look at every story, and if there's any sort of like discrimination, there's any sort of authoritarianism, like they always associate with those groups. And they're always like, oh, well, this is political, when a lot of people are smart enough to be like, this happens all over the world throughout centuries. From you have right-wing governments who are authoritarian, you have left-wing governments who are authoritarian, you have all different types of people discriminated against. Like, it's almost a sort of hubris that liberals have, where they're stuck in like the late 1960s through now, always thinking like they're the party, the Democrats, the liberals, they're the party of the downtrodden, of the discriminated against. When it's like, first of all, that hasn't been the Democrat Party in a while. Now it's finally shifting in terms of voters. In terms of interests, hasn't been that party in a while. Not the Republicans have done a great job of that either. That's not what I'm saying. But they still like to believe, and I feel like this is really big with older boomer Democrats, where it's like, well, we were on the right side of history in 1968, so we're on the right side of history now, and nothing has changed. And there's been no change in the dynamics. There's been no change in civil rights and all of that. And they love to. I mean, they are the most. I'm sorry, because I know boomers. They're the most narcissistic generation that's ever existed. And I mean, I'd put them up there above Gen Z, to be honest. So and they love to make themselves the heroes of any story, when smarter people will look at these things and be like, yeah, that was just like a fun adventure. Like, that is what movies are expensive. They're expensive to go to, especially like a children. You assume that they're going with children, right? Like Ben Shapiro, I'm sure didn't go and see Wicked alone. Like I'm sure he went with his family. So that's an expensive thing to do, even though people like him are wealthy. But the average Republican right-winger is not wealthy anymore. Also, a big, which we'll talk about in the movie, in the book, We Have Never Been Woke, that the average Republican voter now is, I think, less wealthy than the average Democrat voter for the first time in a very long time. And they like to just go have an adventure, go have an experience, I should say. Like I saw Wicked. It was an experience. It's big and it's funny and it's I wrote my review of this. I gave it a very high score. And it's like this, they're like these small details in Wicked that they didn't have to do that they did that were really fun. Like the way, the shape of a certain book, or the way a library was like circular and you could climb up ladders and like spin the whole library. And there's like little things like that that gave it a sort of whimsy that is really enjoyable, that people want to go and see the movies. They don't want every story to just be, and even though it had, any story is going to have conflict. If it doesn't have conflict, what's the point?
Right.
So in this world, the conflict comes from a handful of things. There's more personal conflicts and there's the more authoritarian conflict. Part of that is this very typical sort of this other group is discriminated against, and that's bad by men in uniforms. Fine. A lot of the other conflict is that Ethelba is green. There's the unknown father, or actually, I might have spoiled that. Let me say it's very obvious early on. Sure. And I called it without any knowledge. I knew the one song from this movie. That's it, even though my wife loves it. So I went into this really without any idea of the story that Ethelba, you know very early on who Ethelba's father is. Like, let's just put it that way. And actually, you do know, I'm not spoiling, in the first scene, you know that it's not who she thinks her father is.
Right.
So anyway, I think that Adam McKay's reaching here a lot.
He is.
He's trying to be the main character, as they say.
And I have even more proof of him reaching. So he sees the pipeline from the current administration, or the upcoming administration, banning Wicked in this way. And it's really hard for me to see this pipeline. I'm not super political. I don't analyze every piece of legislation that comes out. But this was his logic. So he's referring to a bill. It has not been passed, or I think it passed in Congress, and it actually got it was mostly Republican backed, but it did get some a decent amount of Democrat support. And so now it's going to the Senate at some point soon. So the act is HR 9495. It is called the Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act. And so here's a brief summary of it. And this is from the official document on the government website. This bill postpones certain tax filing deadlines for U.S. nationals who are unlawfully or wrongfully detained abroad or held hostage abroad and their spouses. It also allows for a refund and abatement of tax penalties and fines paid by hostages, detained individuals, and their spouses or dependents. The bill terminates the tax-exempt status of terrorist supporting organizations. So here's the thing. It's that last part. And I'll just read it again. The bill terminates the tax-exempt status of terrorist supporting organizations. So I can understand a little bit of the concern that the left has with this, which is it would allow the government to say, hey, so for example, if there's a nonprofit organization and they tweet out, support for Palestine, it could potentially be like, the government could be like, hey, you guys are supporting Hamas. We're going to remove your tax exempt status.
I see. Okay.
And I guess Adam McKay sees that as a pipeline to banning Wicked, the movie. He brought this bill up multiple times. I'm not bringing this. He mentioned this bill multiple times in his tweet thread. He's really fucking reaching here.
I don't know anything about this bill, so I'll look into it. It looks like it has a bunch of it looks like it has a bunch of bipartisan support. It's like two Republicans, two Democrats co-sponsored it. So I don't really know, but why I started laughing was whenever I hear something like this, I think of Office Space, the jump to conclusions board. I think that's what he's doing, or it's like that meme where it's like the kid verbal meme, the kid 1 foot on the ground, and it's like HR bill 9495 or whatever, and then he's like stretching his leg all the way up like 5 steps. It's like banning Wicked in 3 years. I don't know. Hey, look, I'm all for kind of legal discussions and how that could affect culture, I'm all for it. But I just don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
So I'll have to look into that before I can really comment.
Well, the rest of the bill, I'm very
it.
much in support of. I don't think that if you've been kidnapped by terrorists, if you're an American who's been kidnapped by terrorists, I don't think you should be taxed. I don't think you should
Yeah, that kind of sucks.
So I don't have any problem with that part of the bill.
Yeah.
Again, I can see a little bit of, again, some of the concern of
what's worse, dealing with Al Qaeda or the IRS.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Just fuck you, mean Afghanistan. Screw it.
Exactly. Again, I can see a little bit of the concern. I didn't read the full bill, so I don't know exactly what are the guardrails installed to prevent the government just being like, oh, you guys tweeted something we don't like that goes against American interests. We're going to remove your tax. Like, I don't know if it gives the government that much power. But again, that from that going, and the bill hasn't even passed yet. From that going to, we're going to ban a movie about witches, about singing witches.
Well, it passed the House, and that would be. Well, I guess what do they need 60 votes or 51? I don't even know how this shit works in the Senate. I know like the filibuster proof would be like a super majority, which is really difficult to do in today's politics. The Republicans, even though they did pretty well, they're still only, I think, I have 53 in the Senate. So I need to see what this needs. It's easier to pass something in the House. You just need a 1-vote majority. But I'll look into that more and maybe we can discuss it on the next episode.
Yeah. If there's some, because I read a few other articles discussing, mostly from only from left-wing publications, and that it seemed to me like a pretty superficial understanding of the bill. It did not seem like
someone in Hollywood was superficial.
I know exactly. Yeah. But that's it. I didn't see like a whole lot of proof that the government could just go around and be like, oh, we're going to take away your tax exempt status because you said something we don't like because you're supporting terrorists. Like, I don't know. But anyway, so McKay, he was responding to a lot of people who were rightfully pointing out some of the flaws in his logic, and so I just want to contrast. Quick before I get to his stupid responses, I have here a quote from George Orwell writing a letter to a friend of his, Francis A. Henson, in 1944, and he's describing 1984. He said the book was based chiefly on communism because that is the dominant form of totalitarianism. But I was trying chiefly to imagine what communism would be like if it were firmly rooted in the English-speaking countries and was no longer a mere extension of the Russian Foreign Office. So he gives this very kind of like eloquent description of what the book is about and the influence on it. And here's how Adam McKay responds about how he thinks this movie is. So somebody said, hey, I don't think you're correct on this. And then McKay responded with, Jesus, dude, you really think I'm 100% the movie will for sure be banned to the point where no one can ever see it? The idea of shutting down nonprofits at the president's discretion is in motion. Things are changing fast. And then he goes on some more. Here we go. So he goes, yeah, I'm crazy for thinking films, books, or music could ever get banned in the US. And he just links to some article describing a Texas school district book ban. And he goes, and then he responds to someone else, aren't you a dumb smug shit? There's a whole history of state intervention with films, books, and music. And he tweets another article about what the FBI was going after. It's a Wonderful Life. Somebody said that's
like 60 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And again, instead of like being able to articulate, hey, this bill, if passed, could have far-reaching cultural effects. He doesn't do that. He just tweets articles to people and basically saying this is just a variation.
Here, you read it.
This is a variation on do your own research. I'm not here to educate you. It's just. Then one more. He says, I think he says, I think you'll be shocked if America keeps going on the track it is on. I wouldn't be surprised to see the movie banned in 3 to 5 years. Somebody responded with, it's like the 5th longest running Broadway play. If they haven't banned it yet, they aren't going to ban the movie. And then he goes, yeah, because nothing ever changes, right? And it's just like, and where he mixed the case that the capitalization case. Nothing ever changes. So it's like, oh yeah, nothing ever changes, right?
Yeah.
He's just being a smug asshole. Also,
it came out Trump. There's like this video of him like talking very knowledgeably about Broadway. Like he's a big fan of Phantom of the Opera.
Oh.
I sent that to my wife, and I was like, "See, he likes Broadway."
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, he's a fucking New Yorker. Like people forget, like he's born and raised New York. Like he likes Broadway. Broadway is great. Like that's the thing. It is like theater. I know you and I might not agree on this totally, and that's fine. But like live theater is an experience that has been going on since the ancient Greeks. It's not going anywhere, and it is different. And that's why I don't like to get in arguments about like, well, what's the better artistic medium? Is it theater? Is it movies? Is it novels? Is it TV shows? Like they're all great in different ways.
Sure.
Like I don't look at them all the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Adam McKay, fucking moron.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about it. It seems like he kind of said something incendiary and then got caught up in it and just doubled down and tripled down and again. I don't get it because there's been so many things that are much more like, okay, so if he's saying 3 to 5 years, that means like Wicked's not going to run in theaters for 3 to 5 years. It's not Broadway. Like in Broadway, it'll be that's not what he's talking about, though, right? Is he talking about the Broadway show? Right. So, like, that's not going to be in theaters in 3 to 5 years. So, like, why not say Barbie was like much more political?
Right.
Like, why wouldn't that be banned in 3 to 5 years? Why Wicked? I don't
Alec
get it.
Baldwin doing, a not very flattering impression of Trump on SNL, that survived.
Yeah.
So looked at it, no problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's not gonna be banned in 3 to 5 years because you can't ban it in 3 to 5 years. Like that's just not. And there's also like no tolerance for that. I don't care what some like deep red county in Texas tries to do with a book or what Seattle tries to do with a book. Like it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And honestly, like Trump's done really well with Gen Z for like a Republican president.
Yeah.
Like why? Who's he gonna gain from that? Like politically, what are you gonna win from that? Because if anything, all of the kind of I think actually in a 4D chess sort of way, all of the craziness, all of the indoctrination might be too strong a word, but the very in your face liberalism, right? The progressive cultural liberalism that has only, I think, been a net negative to the Democratic Party. I think more people have gone to movies with their families wanting an adventure and getting being over the head with progressive politics. I think the more every time a drag queen does a story hour, every time that a student comes home and tells their mom or dad that they have the genderqueer book that's showing blowjobs, children giving blowjobs, anything like that, I think that only hurts them in the long run. I know it's not the top issue, and I think it was foolish for Republicans to be focusing on that kind of stuff too much. Sure. But and I actually can be I didn't think it was the best what political advertisement Trump did, but I think studies have come out. There have been some statistics that came out that the most effective Trump ad, which I liked but wasn't, I think it was like why we focus on this, was showing Kamala Harris talk about the giving, like the ACLU, where she stupidly documented, because this was the zeitgeist at the time, like 2019, 2020, that she would give illegal trans criminals free sex change operations.
Yeah, like gender affirming.
And she and doubled down on it.
Yeah. And
Trump's line was very smartly like, she's for they, them, he's for you. Yeah. And that actually was a very effective ad. Yeah. Now, I would like more of the stuff to be about lowering prices, about the trade, about bringing jobs back, about trade policy, about illegal immigration, about crime. But that shit does play.
Yeah.
And, so I think that the more that the more left culturally that the Democrats went and tried to backtrack too little too late, because I think Kamala Harris, to her credit, did try and actually be more of a moderate and run away from that. I'm glad she got caught and got obliterated by it. Yeah. I think it only hurts them. Yeah. So I don't think, like, from a political standpoint, like, the more that they do this crazy shit and the more that they do that and then try to tell America that JD Vance is weird, and you have, naked trans people at the Rose Garden or whatever it's called, and you have, gay interns or whatever having sex in the Senate chamber, or whatever it is, what I'm talking about. Like, the more you have that shit, and then you say, hey, they're the weird ones.
Yeah.
Like, people aren't dumb. Like the average American isn't dumb. They might be busy. They might not pay attention to everything. It might be more of an ignorance. And I mean that in like the little I ignorance, like just like not knowing, because there's a lot of information out there. And like you don't want to be terminally online. And we saw those campaigns, especially on the right, that tried to do that. I'm looking at you, DeSantis. That being said, like the more that does creep into the mainstream and the average American does see that, the less they like it. Like, it is not a winning tactic. So I say all of that to say that, like, no, if the Republicans were smart, which, okay, maybe they're not always smart, but I think the JD Vances and that wing of it are more attuned to culture. Like now the average American cultural like hit points, they're going to be like, no, this shit actually helps us.
Yeah.
Like the crazier liberal shit you put out there, it gives us more votes.
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in, Georgia, like that actually gives us more votes.
The funniest Trump ad that I saw was Harris giving a speech, and she goes, the price of ground beef is up almost 50%. The price of groceries has gone up over 40%, and then just cuts to Trump saying, "I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve of this ad."
Hold on, was that real though?
I don't know.
I don't know if that's just on Twitter, because I think I saw that too, and that is genius. I don't know if that was just like an internet thing,
like,
but in the end, does it matter? Like if it's a fake Trump ad, people still see it. But yes, and it was like she was listing all these things. It's like, bitch, you're in power.
Like, this happened under you.
Like you did. That was very funny.
Yeah. Oh man.
I loved how she changed her accent so often. I thought that was great.
Yeah. And then
okay, so I'll say one thing. I voted for Trump. I'm glad he won.
Yeah.
But how incredible would it have been if Kamala Harris was going, like if she won and she like went to other countries and started doing their accents, because I could just see that happening. There's actually this comedian, I'll get her name, who does like amazing Kamala Harris impressions, and she like does her on the street and stuff, and like does her in McDonald's, and like she has like the kind of like wavery voice perfectly. And she kind of does that too. She like orders Chinese food. She starts like doing her Chinese, like a Chinese accent, and very good. I'll find her so I can give her credit, which is very funny.
Yeah. So this next topic, this is from Art News. This is an article titled "The Year in Censorship: An Irreparable Art World Schism Over Israel's War in Gaza Intensified." And we had talked about a couple of these controversies in a previous episode. But yeah, this is crazy. It's
sorry, I had it up. Let me pull it back up. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, that's the wrong one. You emailed it to me, but go ahead, talk about it. I got it up.
Here, I'll just read the opening article here. Before 2024 even began, and arguably even before October 7th, 2023, the art world was split on Israel and Palestine. But this year, the schism widened even further until there was no room for nuanced debate. Suspicions of anti-Semitism and anti-Palestine sentiment proliferated in all corners, and looking to museums for guidance surely left some disappointed. Cultural institutions worldwide, from the Noguchi Museum in New York to Kunstmuseum Bern in Switzerland and to Qatar's Mathaf, were accused in 2024 of censoring artists and curators based, in many cases, on their pro-Palestine politics. The article is obviously pretty slanted on the pro-Palestine side. But yeah, this is very frustrating. Where it's just, you can't just go to a museum or a gallery hoping to get away from the news, and now they are turning into something to escape from, to be reminded of these things. I don't know. What were your thoughts on this?
Well, I feel like we don't get enough details in here into like what the art is. Like, I agree. It's like, I don't know why this has to be in art.
Yeah.
But fine. Like, current events and tragedies, that's, you could say, well, Picasso made Guernica about the fascist bombing of Guernica in Spain. Yeah. So like, it's always been, part of art, like tragedy. So I really wish, there's a financial incentive, and I think that sucks, but who is supporting these museums. Okay, if that is people who support Israel, like that's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to just be clear. I don't know how museum artwork curation works, like the nitty gritty, but it would be nice if it was kind of that, hey, we're just gonna have everything, we're gonna include it based on quality, we're gonna try and have diverse opinion. I know it's probably easier said than done. Right. And something that's so, like, if someone does stuff about Nazis now, well, that was so long ago, and it's very much decided who was good and who was bad there. But this is going on like as we speak.
Yeah,
there's bombing going on, there's killing going on. So I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I can't tell if this is like a lot of times, and I don't mean to just be jaded to this, but a lot of times when I feel like it's more on the left when they feel like they're being censored, like they're leaving things out about what actually they're being censored for. Right. And they conflate that with like the art as a whole. Yeah. I don't know. I did read this, by the way, and it seemed like a bunch of it just seemed like a bunch of like names. Like half these things here are just different publications and museums, and a bunch of artist names and a bunch of art title names, and then it's like you have some art Weiwei, however you pronounce his name. I know the Chinese artist, and he makes a dumb comment. That's, I mean, he says at the end how he's citing like how the U.S. or the West is more. Let me get him right. Let me not paraphrase. So, in a statement to the Wall Street Journal, a spokesperson for Shogun's department said the changes. Okay, Ai Weiwei, I'm sorry for pronouncing that name wrong, whose gallery Li Son delayed his show after he tweeted critically of Israel, also made the headlines for saying censorship in the West is, quote unquote, sometimes even worse than in Mao's China. It's like, dude, there's just no way that's true.
Yeah.
Like, try criticizing the CCP.
Right.
Like, you just can't. Like,
right.
So I fucking hate that relativism, and it's just untrue. You can say that there might be some hypocrisies in the West, like that's fine. But to say that the West even sometimes is more censorious than the Chinese communist government is just not true. And this is a dumb thing to say. And I liked him because I don't know if I said this before. I have this book that's called Of Cats and Men, where it's like all these famous, mostly artists, scientists, writers who are like famous cat guys, and he's in there. So like that's how I know him. But he sucks. like he's just like that. That's just really dumb. And I'll finish what he says. Yeah. Citing in part the crackdown on pro-Palestine expression on U.S. college campuses. It's like, dude, that was not expression that was being cracked down on. It was like they were taking over buildings. They were ceasing operations. This was not like a picket line on the public square. And
harassing Jewish students.
And that's what I mean. Yes. Like, stop basically asking where are your papers? Prove you're not Jewish is what was going on in some places. And that's what I mean. Actually, I'm glad I read that because I'm just bolstering myself. What else is new? Where it's like that is not what happened. So they're crying censorship. It's like, dude, I don't know if he's in America or where he is. And mostly, by the way, all these fucking thinkers, Foucault and the Jacques Derrida and all these Marxist communist guys, they were all writing and all saying things from like Parisian cafes and New York and like beatnik cafe. They weren't in China. They weren't in Cuba saying this shit. They're the biggest hypocrites ever. But like that just shows right there, like, dude, that's just not what was going on. Did maybe like a handful of schools overdo it because they didn't want their campus to become Columbia or UCLA? Like, sure, maybe they did preemptively strike some of these student camp, but like, no, you don't have the right to fucking camp out on a college campus. Like, you just don't. I don't care what your like if they're I don't care what your cause is. Like, if they're just shutting down any sort of speech, any sort of picketing or whatever, well, that's one thing. But that's not what I was seeing going on. I was following that very closely.
Oh, yeah. So, of course, I don't think that any art should be banned or censored because of, the political statements being made by the artwork itself, or by, the statements being made by the artist or by the gallery itself. But at the same time, I can understand even if a gallery has stupid standards that I disagree with, if it's a private, institution, then they can come up with whatever stupid standards they want, as far as I know. For the most part.
Are they private?
I'm not sure. That's the other thing I think I was going to say is at least be more transparent, because like you said about the article, it's very vague, so it's a little hard to figure out, like, was this really a gallery saying we disagree with what your art is saying, therefore we are not going to promote it, or was it like, well, there's a breach in contract, there were some other complications involved. That's what it seemed like, at least for some of the cases that it's referencing. Also, I'm just so sick of the word solidarity and artists, creating stuff in solidarity. And I'm sure it's coming from a good place, but again, it's just sort of like like the sort of buzzword, like, I'm going to create something in solidarity for this thing. And it's like, how about raise money for that group if you care that much about them? How about start a charity or a fund for them, instead of like, hey, everybody, look at me. By the way, this is for politics. This is for this. I'm just so sick of like. Overtly politicized art, and at the same time, as you pointed out, like, the idea of artists using art to protest, like an unjust war or something like that. And it's been around for a long time, and of course some amazing works have come from that. But I don't know, I think there's a certain laziness that I'm seeing with a lot of modern artists. It's sort of slacktivism.
Like here's a paragraph of why I just think this is like kind of a poorly written article, and maybe it's not, like, maybe I want something more a little investigative, but like here's my example. So this is the penultimate paragraph. The year's mounting censorship controversies ultimately and inevitably created a crisis of faith at these institutions, which purportedly exist as repositories of history. If museums can't be trusted to tell our stories, who can? These concerns exceeded even the question of Palestine. In November, for example, Wall Street Journal investigation revealed that the Biden-appointed archivist of the United States, Colleen Shogan, directed the National Archives to alter photographic exhibits that focused on civil rights in the U.S. Among the most controversial orders was the removal of portraits of MLK Jr. and images taken by Dorothea Lange, photographs of Japanese American incarceration camps, the latter having been deemed too negative. Like, okay, what does that mean? Like that's why I want to know, like, is that true? Like, too negative in what respect? Is that like, I just can't imagine that this is a country, especially like the Biden administration, the Democrats, that are so like already negative about our culture and our history. Like they're going to take down MLK, Japanese internment. Like, I just don't buy that for those reasons. Like, it doesn't mean they didn't take them down, but I can't imagine it's like, well, these make us look bad. I just doesn't, like, it doesn't pass the smell test. So that's why I think this is just kind of a crappy article. And maybe I should go read that Wall Street Journal article. I won't, but that's probably what I should do, and to answer my questions. But that's why I just can't take this stuff very seriously.
Yeah, this is a weird article because, I mean, like, on its surface, I mean, first off, we've covered some other stuff from Art News before, and it's obviously a very progressive leaning publication. But when I saw the year in censorship, I was like, oh, maybe they're actually trying to be a little more nuanced, a little more objective here. And of course, we're against censorship, especially censorship in art. But reading this, I was just sort of like, I still don't know exactly where you guys stand on this. I still don't really. This is a little too vague. I was hoping for something like a little more substantive on this.
I mean, I can't think of a group that kind of gets more. Like, there are a lot of there's a lot of discrimination, or whatever you want to call it. Right? It's probably not even the right word for the, but like the Palestinians have gotten sorry, my cat's chewing on something. The Palestinians kind of get more attention than like any discriminated against group. And you can argue, I'm sure there are people who say they're not even discriminated. Like, I'm not having that conversation right now. Right. But like, there are a lot of groups out there that people don't even know about, like get no attention at all. And the Palestinians are cause celeb all over the world, like all types of like any leftist group associates with the Palestinians. Is kind of the epitome of like the plight of ethnic people. And again, I'm not saying I agree with this, but like, they are the epitome of like the colonized group.
Yeah.
They were there first. They get their land taken from them. They get walls put up. They get treated as second-class citizens. Like, this is their side. And I think there's some truth to that and some exaggeration to that. And I don't think it's very simple. The Israeli-Palestine argument, I think, is one that, unless you're willing to have like a actual nuanced, long discussion about it, you're not going to satisfy anybody. So, because I think either side that thinks that they're blameless is wrong. But you know, I think, like, I've been to a lot of museums. I've been to modern art museums. I've been to historical museums. Like, the Palestinians get a lot of attention. And to say that, like, all of the sudden while they're, you know, kind of being wiped away, that museums in the West are going to not, where stereotype, like, you want to stereotype it or not, I do think that liberals and left-wing people go to museums more. I think they're more inclined to, maybe not like some of the classical exhibits, but I do think that just the liberals tend to be more interested in art and art history. And so, like, you're really not gonna, it's kind of like know your audience. I just can't imagine, unless there's some really kind of nefarious, almost stereotypical, which does happen, Israeli or Jewish money behind it, which, again, I know that can be a dirty stereotype. There's also some truth to it in some areas. Unless there's that, and that's, like, can be, I think, discovered pretty easily or uncovered pretty easily, then I just think this is way too simplistic, and I need more evidence to just be like, these museums aren't putting on these exhibits because Palestine bad.
Yeah. So this was a stupid article, and
it was stupid because also, like, just didn't do a very convincing job of, like, if they're partial, like, it didn't do a very good job of convincing me. I mean, even, like, lie to me, like, honestly, exaggerate to me, like, this didn't even do that. It just was kind of a big amount of nothing.
So next time, do better. Tessa Solomon, who wrote the article, she worked as a digital assistant to Bust magazine, regularly reporting on the intersections of politics, arts, and feminism.
Take a shot, intersection.
Oh, speaking of, did you want a Nazi jar? Didn't we have?
Oh my God! Yes, we did. And so typically, we did have a Nazi jar of the week. Okay, so I'll write it down. Typically, I don't do Nazi jar for, like, just regular accounts or, like, anonymous account. I only do them for kind of, like, you know, what used to be called blue checks, like, basically like an Adam McKay, right? If he was dropping Nazi this, but this guy was calling me a Nazi, so fuck him. I'm trying to find the name.
I got it. It's Shock Hazard.
Okay, Shock Hazard on Twitter. This guy was calling me a Nazi because something with immigrants, and that, like, again, an immigrant killed a bunch of people.
There's a thing in Germany.
Yeah, in Germany. And it was like, well, some stuff has come out, like, is he actually anti-Islam? Is he actually, like, you know, is he a Islamic fundamentalist, or is he so anti-Islam that he's attacking a Christmas market in Germany because the German government has been too appeasing? Like, I don't care.
Right.
He was not German.
Right.
Like, he was from Saudi Arabia. He was a quote unquote refugee or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, because what he was doing was, actually Zed Jalani, who I like a lot, he was kind of shitty to me, to be honest. But I was like, the point here isn't whether he's Muslim or not. It's that he's not from there. Like, that's the argument. It's like there's all of these immigrants who are hurting people, who are killing people, who are sexually assaulting people. A lot of stuff doesn't get in the news because there's not always murder or whatever. But it's like, and again, I understand people always do this statistic that's like, well, you know what? Like, immigrants actually, like, cause less crime than. I was like, I don't give a shit. Their crime shouldn't exist because they shouldn't be here.
Right.
And again, these aren't, like, lawful immigrants, whether, you know, these aren't like H1B1. I know that was the whole thing. Like, those aren't the ones who are doing it. Right. Like, it's not like some tech dude from India. It is the same groups of people. And in Europe, it's a certain type of person. And here it's a certain type of person overwhelmingly. It's like, they shouldn't be here. They're not documented. They're not accounted for. And that is, and over there, it's like, he wasn't some German kid. And I mean German as in, like, he could have been Turkish of 3 generations. I would, like, Turkish background of 3 generations. Like, I would count that as German. as a German. Like this person was not from Germany.
Right.
Whether he is a background of Polish or Turkish or German, going back to the fucking Habsburgs, so that, and I got called a Nazi for that, which I don't think was very fair and just really dumb, and that's why he's the Nazi jar of the week, because he sucks, and you owe us $1. What's his name again? Shock Hazard.
Yes.
Okay, so $1. I'll tweet at him. Shock Hazard. All right, thank you for reminding me. Yes, I almost forgot, and that's Nazi jar of the week. We haven't had Nazi jar in a while.
Yeah,
my poor wife. She's like, just please don't do the Nazi jar thing. I'm like, no, you don't get it.
Yeah.
it's actually no, it's not pro-Nazi. It's actually so. Anyway.
Yeah, I know, and he was. You do have some fascistic tendencies, Benjamin.
Sure,
but not
most of us do.
But yeah, I mean, it's just looking at his dumb arguments. It's just, he's just being a fucking.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it even was, but I knew it was that. It was like, dude, I don't like. First of all, the Nazis actually loved some Muslims. Like Alex, our friend Alex, he did a whole episode on Muslim Nazis in Albania. Hitler actually was a big fan because the or what was it? The Sultan in Egypt was like red hair with blue eyes, and he was like Albanian heritage, and Hitler loves that shit. And and like guess what the Muslims and the Nazis had in common? They didn't like the Jews. And so yeah, there's kind of a horseshoe thing there. So yeah, the Nazis actually were big fans of the Muslims in some respects, and worked with the Muslims in a lot of ways. So you're dumb, internet Twitter person. Or I'm sure it's just some like 14-year-old in like Albany, New York or something.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah. So that was good. I'm glad that we're slowly building up that Nazi gold in the jar there. So
yeah, we'll collect soon. I don't want to call them Nazi gold.
No, these are IOUs from idiots.
Yeah.
So yeah, all right, cool, man.
All right. Until next time, you stay reckless.
Fight the crits.
Jose, and fight the crits.